lies affect the masses. There's no excuse. You've been loosed.
This is From Destruction to Dignity with Janice Pons. Each week, Janice shares her wisdom to enlighten, educate, and advance the culture in America today. Janice Pons is a mother, author, and free thinker, and your host for our podcast this evening. Now let's join your host, Janice Pons.
Greetings, greetings, greetings. Come on in here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Janice Pons. I am the host on this show, on this podcast, From Destruction to Dignity, Clinical Perspective, Spiritual Truths. Now, you know me by now. Yes, you do. There are more and more people tuning in. Thank you for being a part of this process, for your comments, for sharing this show, for your involvement. More and more Christian conservative constitutionalists are getting a vision that this is a place for you to have a voice. It's a place for us as Americans to have a voice because our beautiful flag represents us as our 50 states in this great union. Our seal represents the branch of government, the executive branch, where the legislative branch, they work for we the people. The executive branch works for we the people. Go back and look at episode 136. I want to remind you of that. It helps. It just gives you a good understanding of how our great nation has been set up with order. And there's such an attack on the order of God's plan for our great nation because the opposite of order is chaos. And there are forces and principalities and powers and rulers of the darkness, spiritual wickedness in high places that has come against us and this great nation and against the 210 million Christians in this great nation. They want to shut us down. They do not want us speaking up. But I'm telling you what, it's a new day. If we don't stand up now, what is it going to take for us to stand up? And what is it going to take that we're dealing with in this month? We've been talking about one of our pillars of that our taxpayer dollars support. Remember, it supports the Social Security retirement always being there, the military, Medicare, health care, paying off the interest of our national debt, and education. Education. We're getting some wisdom, guys, together. But Proverbs says wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom. But in all thy getting, get understanding. And I've gotten feedback from people to say, I'm understanding. I understand why we need to be paying taxes to support these 5 pillars. It helps our nation flow together as one, which means forming a more perfect union. Now, I'm concerned and I'm emphatic at this point because the ante has been upped. The ante has been upped, and this month we are dissecting. We are going in strong to identify the perpetration upon our public school students that our taxpayer dollars are paying for. Remember, it's one of the 5 pillars. It's one of the 5 pillars that our taxpayer dollars are paying for. And it's been under a ferocious attack. It is under a dictatorship. And that dictatorship, and we're going to talk about tonight, we're going to continue on our journey. We're going to dive into different parts of this the entire month. We're talking about the LGBTQ dictatorship of our children's education. And tonight, we're going to talk about how they got that authority. And from a clinical perspective, we're going to look at the angle of the trauma connection because there is certainly a process of traumatization going on. So what are we going to do? Well, know what? That we're supposed to stand around and say nothing as our children are being sexualized and we're paying for it. We already talked about last week how first graders are learning the details of masturbation and we're supposed to go, well, you know what? Well, the middle schoolers are being taught the dangerous, medically dangerous act of fisting. Well, you know what? Our taxpayer dollars are paying for it, and we're supposed to just go along. Well, we just have to kind of go along to get along. I think not. Because these children are being sexualized, our taxpayer dollars are paying for it, and they have been given a dictatorship, the LGBTQ dictatorship. I know gay, lesbian, transgender, queer people. I love them. I hold them. I hug them. They're my fellow Americans. We're talking about something that's going on with our children. You grown. You can do whatever you want to do behind closed doors. We're talking about something going on in the public forum. I saw these parades that they were having in June. They had grown men walking around with their penises hanging down, shaking children's hands. They get on the news and they were talking about, we're here, we're queer, we're coming for your children. Why somebody so focused on our children? See, this thing is going to another level. Why you focus on somebody's children? Why is there an agenda that's focused on heterosexuals' children? They're children. They choose not, they can adopt if they want to, but they can't, two men getting together can't have a baby. Neither can two women. Come on, let's deal with some biology here. But they want to focus on teaching children. I'm concerned. I worked as a teacher, a school psychologist. Yes, I am a licensed clinician. And I'm an American citizen, and I'm concerned. I have a big calling to protect children. What, am I going to stand before God and say I didn't say anything? Are you kidding me? He's put this fire in my belly to protect our children. There's a dictatorship going on. Well, we didn't have any say in what was going on. And it's all engrossed and all wrapped around in our children's education. And it's in the books. And they just show up, just sitting there, just showing up. Parents sending their children to school in good faith. And their minds are being accosted. We're going to talk about how they got that authority. Look, last week we looked at that historic. Look, I told you, history's on our side, guys. This isn't new. This was going on, just kind of catching you up. Alexander the Great in 330 BC, Julius Caesar 220 BC. It was a part of the Greek and Roman culture. That's what they did. The pederasty, grown men with boys. And it kept going, and it kept going, and it kept going for over 100 years. Then Emperor Constantine, he shows up, and he says, excuse me? The Edict of Milan. We talked about that last week. Where it just said, hey, Christianity, we're not persecuting them anymore. These are people of God. They want morals and they want values. They want protection. And so it's like, we're not doing that anymore. And so under Constantine, the Edict of Milan said, well, Christianity is the official religion of the Roman Empire. And then it continued to unfold. And so 370 AD, we talked about how these sect pederasty, it was criminalized. No sex between men and boys. Their development is being stunted. Their development is being accosted. They're being perpetrated upon. So what'd they do? The law of the land back then, they were burned. I don't want that for anybody in our great nation. That's not how we handle differences. That's not how we handle differences. But back then, that's what they did in history. 389 AD, they enacted the first laws against homosexual citizens, where Christian leadership took away the rights of the benefits for wills and estates. That's what went on. And then the persecution even got to the point of burning in 400 AD. There is nothing in us that wants that. We don't want that. We love our neighbor as we love ourselves. The love of God has been shed abroad in our hearts by the Holy Ghost. And we're fellow Americans. That's not how we handle differences. But there are laws. And part of the laws is we have to protect our children. We come to a point where things are out of control, where they're going to school and they're being traumatized. And we're going to really dissect that clinical perspective. Some of them are to the point that they have PTSD. They can't even think. Let me tell you, this is me just talking about what's going on. Facts. In Tulsa Public Schools, I want so much to be involved in the answers. We can't keep traumatizing these children. The proficiency on test scores showed it was up in the maybe 37% were proficient in reading. Then it went down to 22%. The last numbers I heard, it was 12% were proficient in reading. What happened? Listen, when you're being sexualized as a child, you're totally distracted. Ask me how I know. I got healed from what happened to me. But I'm going to tell you, when I went through that molestation and that grooming that was going on, I was so distracted. I couldn't focus. I couldn't learn how to do subtraction. When I was in the 4th grade, I was distracted. And then when that happens to you, when you see pictures and see images and see hear certain languages, you're just in a tailspin. You can't think clear. That's what's going on in our schools Monday through Friday. And if they come to the school and have been molested, they're showing up already ravaged in their precious little minds. Their souls are in turmoil. Their mind, their will, their emotions, their intellect, their drive, their desires are in a chaotic tailspin. And then they go to school and look at a book and it's showing 2 men together, showing a man telling a boy how he can touch himself. Are you kidding me? So they're being re-traumatized all over again. And they say, oh, he's anxious. He can't focus. Let's put him on medication. Oh, really? Let's get him therapy. So he goes to, and I'm a licensed clinician, and I've gone through taking people through the therapeutic process. I had to get healed, where you have to name and explain. You have to name and explain what happened. Then you've got to process it. And then you get the strategy, skills, and tools, and you have to metabolize it. That takes time. Name, explain, process, metabolize, name, explain, process, metabolize. That's a therapeutic process. So then they go and get therapy. And guess what? Go right on back in that classroom, baby. And get re-traumatized all over again. What are we doing? What are we doing? The madness has got to stop. We're traumatizing them in school. And why are we down to 12% in Tulsa? Can read? God, have mercy on us. Who's going to stand up and call a spade a spade? I will. Can I get anybody to join me? There are 210 million Christians. We got to stand up, guys. The line of demarcation has been drawn in the sand. Let's look at how this authority was handed to this agenda in 2023. Let's go back to the dictator-in-chief and how it was in the making. We had the head of state, Alexander the Great, was part of the Greek culture. We had Julius Caesar, head of state, was part of the Roman culture. Then we got head of the state, dictator-in-chief Barack Hussein Obama. In 1996, listen to me. I'm just going to take you on a journey. Come, go with me. 96, Obama. Oh, hey. I said I'd be his most ardent, his most vocal supporter if he'd just do the right thing. Well, I was closely observing. So in 96, he announced through a questionnaire that he supported domestic partnerships and same-sex marriage, at least according to a paper trail. So there are questionnaires that they give these senators and congressmen. So he was in Illinois. So they continue to question these people. So in 96, that was his position. In 98, he said, well, see, he was being groomed. Yeah, he was being pointed out. They had already set this thing in motion. Listen, where this is taking us. In 98, he says, well, I'm undecided about same-sex marriage. Oh, but he is fine. He's suave. He's debonair. He's the up-and-coming leader in our nation. In 2004, he announces that he supports civil unions and civil rights for gays and lesbians. Well, guess what? I support civil rights for everybody. Why? They're Americans. Why we gotta specify a group? Well, I support civil rights for Americans, all of us, because the 14th Amendment says whatever laws are in place in a given state, those laws, those rights, based upon the Constitution, apply to you. And when the 14th Amendment was put in place, not one Democrat voted for it. And the 15th Amendment, which gave black men the right to vote, not one Democrat voted for it. I leave that there for you to think about it. Let's let that marinate. We're talking about planks. We're talking about history. So then Obama in 2004, he's an up-and-coming leader. Y'all see that fine black man? Y'all see that fine black man? He's an up-and-coming leader. He was talking about these civil rights specifically for gays and lesbians. Oh, okay. And then in the same year, he started talking about marriage, it's between a man and a woman. Oh, and I had my Christian friend, oh, girl, we got to get behind this Barack Obama. He's the last chance for black people, they said to me. Huh? Yeah. He said he's for marriage between a man and a woman, they said to me. And then he kept going on. And he became front and center on the forefront politically. And then he came out in 2004, and he was becoming more vocal, this up-and-coming black leader from Illinois. And he opposed the Federal Defense of Marriage Act while running for U.S. Senate in Illinois. See, he showed his cards in 2004. Yes, he did. He showed his cards in 2004. It was a federal law. So in 2006, he shows up even more. And in his book, The Audacity of Hope, he began to show he began to question his opposition to same-sex marriage, because all the Christians were telling me, girl, we got to get in behind him. He's the last chance for black people. What are you talking about? What about Jesus Christ, Son of the living God? I serve a great God. And you're going to tell me that he's the last chance for black people? Who you serving? So in 2007, during the Democratic primary, he reaffirms his support for strong civil unions. Okay, all right. And he offered that all the rights that come with opposite-sex marriage should be given to these strong civil unions. In 2008, as a presidential candidate, he pledged to repeal DOMA, Defense of Marriage Act, and Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which was banning people being openly gay in the military. Let's fast forward right there. Right now, men, all they got to do is say, I'm a woman. And they have to change it in the system, and they do it in the trainings. I know soldiers, and the soldiers say they just can go in the shower. And when they're doing these trainings with these military personnel now, the women are sitting there looking like this. What do you mean? They can get in the shower with me? Yeah. And some of them are standing up and saying, they can't get in the shower with us. Right now, what's going on in our military, and we'll dissect that pillar, which our taxpayer dollars pay for. They're showing up in the showers, buck naked, penis and all, and women are in there. One of the first executive orders that Joe Biden did was to put in place that in the showers in our public schools, people that had penises could get in the girls' shower. Where are the men? Where are the Mordecais? Mordecais and Esthers, you're going to join me at the Washington Mall, October 12th, 2024. We're going to make a loud decree and cry in a prayer service. We got to stand in the gap for this nation. We got to protect our children. The Esthers and the Mordecais, we're going to stand together. There's a movement. They're talking about 1 million Esthers and Mordecais raising their voice in prayer at this prayer service. I say 210 million Christians need to show up at the Washington Mall, October 12th, 2024. I will be there front and center. I'm inviting all you pastors. Let's have church on the Washington Mall. Let's continue to unfold. See, the Esthers and the Mordecais on October 12th, we can summon the world to say we are going to be in a massive solemn assembly of fasting and prayer on the Day of Atonement to say enough is enough. We call on the Supreme Court to protect our posterity, our children. What did Obama do? How did this whole thing get its authority? We totally agree in 2009 when he got in office, where he signed the Matthew Shepard and the James Byrd Hate Crimes Act. It is not okay to be hurting anyone that is our fellow American. Of course, we're against that. But with much specificity, how did they get their authority? With much specificity, Mr. Obama, President Obama, in October of 2010, he said, well, he got up and said, he had a way of holding that head. He said, my views on gay marriage are starting to evolve. Boy, did that empower a specific group of people who I love, who I respect, who I care for. My fellow Americans who are LGBTQ. I love you. I care for you. I respect you. But you got to get your hands off our children. This dictatorship where you say what goes on. We didn't have any say in it. Is that the American way? Do we vote it? The American way is we vote on it. So, what did Dictator-in-Chief continue to do? In 2010, he signed a bill saying, don't ask, don't tell. And then we talked about this last week. In 2011, he just instructed the Justice Department to stop defending the Defense of Marriage Act in court, saying that he just believes. Well, Obama said. I had black folk just inundated. Oh, you hear what Obama said? What did he say, baby? He said that he believes it's unconstitutional. Oh, he did. And he said his administration will no longer assert its constitutionality in the court. That was not even his position to do because he operates in the executive branch of the government. That was up to the Supreme Court. And then in May of 2012, he became the first president to support same-sex marriage. Head of state, Alexander the Great. Head of state, Julius Caesar. Head of state, Dictator-in-Chief Obama, head of state. So in July 2014, he signs an executive order protecting LGBTQ employees working for government contract. Listen, baby, we're Americans. We're Americans. I hate this whole black, white, this, that. I'm proud to be an American. Well, at least I know I'm free. Are our children free? Are our children free? They're going to school being traumatized. Are they free? I take this traumatization thing seriously. I know what that's like. Sitting there don't know what to do with those feelings, that anxiety, that trauma. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave their right to me. And I'll gladly stand up next to you. I'm going to stand up next to those babies. Will you go with me? So, what did he do? How did we get here? How did they get their authority? In December 2014, the Obama administration interpreted the Civil Rights Act to be the Civil Rights Act of 64 and 65 was the same as LGBTQ acts. Let me tell you what, there were black people that were offended when they heard that. It's not the same. You weren't denied the right to go to school. You weren't denied the right to eat in a restaurant like I was because you're gay. Come on in the restaurant. You never were denied anybody's right to eat or go to school because of your sexual preference or your identity. So it continued to evolve. In January 2025, Obama became the first president to use the word transgender in the State of the Union address. And then in April of 2015, he said that conversion therapy for minors should be banned. It's not your place, sir. If somebody, Clinical Skills 101 says that they show up and they want to process something, I'm supposed to let them talk about whatever they want to talk about. You can't tell me what I can talk about in a therapeutic session. And I am not taking that back because I'm not going to shut them down and say we can't talk about that. I've had them to ask me, well, what does the Bible say about homosexuality? And I went to my chief clinical officer. I said, these people keep asking me, what does the Bible say? He said, give them the scriptures and let them draw their own conclusion. True story. So June 26th of 2015, gay marriage was legalized. It was legalized. And it'd be one thing. Okay, it was legalized. But it didn't stop there. So in June of 2015, we went from 2015 to 2023 in 8 years. Look at where we are now. Where a 12-year-old, the teacher was teaching that girl how to transition from being a girl to being a boy to the point that the teacher showed her how she could get a different name and didn't even tell the parent. What are we doing? What were we doing? And then the mother found out. Trauma, the parents are being traumatized, the children are being traumatized. They showed a cartoon to first graders at a school in New York where it was talking about, well, we boys and girls, well, today we're going to look at a cartoon, we're going to look at a video where it's showing how you can touch your own self down there in your genitalia area. Oh, so we're teaching first graders how to masturbate. That's all it translates into. And then you get in middle school, they're fisting. They're showing them how to do that. Trauma. What is trauma? Trauma is when you have something perpetrated upon you. You didn't ask for it. You're a child. It usually happens in the developmental years where you can't do anything about it. All of a sudden, you're dealing with overwhelmed feelings. You're having panic attacks. You can't breathe. Your heart is palpitating. And I'm telling you guys, I've worked with people in settings when you've been traumatized through molestation by seeing things in pornographic images, and the way they're getting away with this mess now is that it's not pornography. You know how they're getting away with it? Because it's cartoons. It's animation. Call that stuff out. Listen, a law starts with an idea. I already have the legislation. The child anti-trauma bill. I know exactly from a clinical perspective and from a spiritual perspective how that thing needs to be tackled. Our Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, he had a bill about the Anti-Child Sexualization Act. Couldn't even get it out of committee. Who's got backbone on Capitol Hill to protect our children? Who's on the Supreme Court to protect our children, our posterity? Guys, they're being traumatized. The trauma connection. What are we talking about tonight? What are we talking about tonight? Listen, go ahead and put this thing on your calendar. We're having a prayer service, October the 12th of 2024. We got to call out. We got to cry out to God. There's a perpetration going on. There is a raping of the minds. We're calling on the Supreme Court to reverse this thing. We've got to stand up. History is on our side. We want to take our children from this destructive pattern and take them into dignity. Good night.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of From Destruction to Dignity with Janice Pons. Janice's mission is to provoke thought, bring awareness, and point people towards intervention when needed. As a reminder, this show is not therapy, but for educational purposes only. For more information, check out JanicePons.com or follow her on social media.
Education, affirmation, dedication, information, revelation. A new nation. We are God empowered. Strength is ours. Liberty been set free. Education, affirmation, dedication.